I would now like to move on to the 7 perspectives of your school as a system, and as a matter of fact, of any system. And these are the 7 sort of angles, 7 things that you need to understand in order to understand what are we working with, what are we doing, what do we need to do. And to make it nice and complex and complicated, each one of them is multidimensional. The first perspective that I want to address is the ethos perspective. That's about the culture, the worldview, the mental model, the attitude, the value system. And we will get back to that shortly. That will affect and influence what we will be seeing in the second perspective. And the second perspective is the environment. And the environmental perspective, ladies and gents, is about what is going on in the environment, what does it consist of, and there we're going to differentiate between 3 kinds of environments. The first one is the system itself, the school itself, over which you normally have, as a system, influence and control. The next kind of or type of environment is a transactional environment, which is sort of the system within which the school functions. It will be the school industry, if you want to call it that. If you're going to take it back into the business world, the wine farm operates within a wine industry. What is happening in this wine industry? Who are the stakeholders, the players there? And then the third kind of environment is a contextual environment. We also refer to this as a macro environment. The government, the economy at large, technology at large, society at large. These are all aspects of the contextual environment. You'll remember I said a while ago that the school, as a system, you have both influence and control. In the transactional environment, ladies and gentlemen, you have influence, you seldom have control. And in the contextual environment, ladies and gents, you have neither influence nor control. And you need to adapt to this. You may be able to make some inputs and work with some people that can lobby on your behalf, but you don't really have either control or influence in the contextual environment. Now, ladies and gents, what the ethos sees as being of importance in the environment will dictate the third dimension or perspective, namely the aims perspective. And in the aims perspective, we would like to know, what is the vision of the school? Why do you exist? What is the ideal future? What is the mission? What is your business? Is it your business to turn out scholars? Or is it your business to actually grow the future of this country? And your ethos will dictate the kind of vision and mission that you adopt. Thereafter, ladies and gents, your aims perspective also entails your objectives. What is it that you would like to achieve on the short term, the medium term, the long term? And then, very importantly, what are the strategies that you will be adopting to achieve these objectives, to execute your mission or your business, so that you can aspire towards your ideal vision? Now you can think for yourself, your ethos has a very strong impact on the vision and the mission and the kind of strategies that you will be adopting. Obviously, they need to be aligned with what goes on in the environment. Because if you develop strategies that are totally inappropriate given the environment within which you are functioning, then you will become irrelevant so quick it's just not true. Once you understand what the strategies are that you would like to adopt, you need then to develop the processes, the activities. What is it that we in a school do? Is it sufficient? Is the way we do it aligned with the kind of strategy and the kind of objectives that we have adopted? So we need to go back and look at our processes and our activities. What do they look like? Are they appropriate? Are they aligned? Are they continuous? When we spoke about the hierarchical level of a system, we said that the processes continue depending on the level at which you work at. What is also important to remember is that how these processes look like differs from the level at which you work. that the executive level leadership will appear in a certain way. When you work with school children, you don't lead them in the same way you as a principal might be exercising leadership towards your personnel. So that is something that we need to bear in mind. What do our processes look like? Are they aligned and appropriate given our strategies and our objectives? Once we understand our processes and activities, ladies and gentlemen, we need to look at the structure of our organization. Now, the structure basically is the way we organize our activities, the way we group them together. And when we get to this, we will look at the typical hierarchical structure. We were looking at the functional structure. We might also be looking at the matrix, the network structure, but I would also like to introduce the energy structure. But we will look at that in more detail when we get to the whole concept of the structure of your system. Thereafter, ladies and gents, we need to develop a sound understanding of the sixth perspective, namely the resource perspective. What do our resources look like? Do we have enough? And here we talk about people, although I hate to designate people as a resource because people are the system. But still we talk about human resources. We talk about financial resources. We talk about the budget, the raw materials, technology. What are the resources that we have available? But also, very importantly, what are the resources that we need to execute the processes, to give them content, to give them meaning, in order to implement our strategies? And once we understand those six perspectives, ladies and gents, we can look at the last one, namely that of governance. Now, governance is how we look at things, how we reward, what are the policies, what are the procedures, how do we communicate? You'll remember we spoke about the dimensions and I spoke about the political dimension. Now, the political dimension manifests itself very powerfully here in the governance perspective. So the governance is how are we going to reward ourselves, how are we going to manage ourselves, how do we get control? And here we normally sit with a number of paradoxes. How do we give people freedom, yet exercise control? Now we get this paradox where people say, in order to get control, you need to give it away. How does this work? And not only is this powerfully influenced by the political dimension, there's a very, very strong correlation between the governance perspective and the ethos perspective. Because what your value system is like, your worldview, your mental models, your attitudes, will have a very strong bearing on the governance of your organization. The how you execute and exercise that leadership, and how you manage your people, and how you exercise or work with the political dimension. Ladies and gents, those were typically an overview of what systems thinking is about. Remember the 7 perspectives and the 8 dimensions. You need to remember that each system consists of subsystems and that there are different contexts within which these systems and subsystems function. You need to remember that they are hierarchical, they co-create one another, that they are purpose and value driven, and that we need to have something which groups them together if you look at a concept where different people within your organization have different purposes and different value systems. Then you need an organizational culture that draws them together in a meaningful way.